Aurora, California. My office is in Ojai, California, not far from here. I wrote the book Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, and I do a lot of coaching training. We have a company that does training and coaching really around the world for helping people to get present, clear their head, get a lot more psychic space to do what they want to do that's meaningful. My favorite disruptive hero is my spiritual coach, a man named John Roger, that I came across in 1971, 40-something years ago. And through my engagement with him, because I had had a lot of inner experiences that I really couldn't place very well in terms of well, what I would call spiritual awareness, but didn't have a reference point for it, didn't really realize that that was a whole world one could explore, and that how much more impactful that is when you actually can become conscious about that world and actually work it. And so JR, as he's fondly known, was sort of a many steps ahead of me in that path, and also was quite a mentor in terms of teaching and sharing best practices about how to access the invisible worlds. And that's made a huge difference in my life. I don't usually proselytize or say a whole lot about it. It's more of an inner process on my own. And that just has become the kind of the backdrop and the ground, if you will, against which all of my work and all the stuff I do is based. For many years, I was, after I discovered how powerful and exciting and interesting the inner worlds really are, I really wanted to, I really was not that interested in this world. As a matter of fact, I kind of wanted to check out, but somehow Rice Bowl and Cave just wasn't that particularly attractive to me. So I liked actually playing in the world, and I just had so many different professions, so many jobs to pay the rent while I was doing my inner work, that at some point I looked around and go, well, gee, I happen to like doing these kinds of things. And it turned out that my interest in sort of clear space had a big tie-in to the spiritual work, because if you're interested in the universe is always on. So when you're doing inner work and meditating and doing spiritual practices, it's not like everything shuts down. It's just you're shutting down a lot of this world so you can pay attention to other ones. So clear space was a nice place to get to. And in the martial arts, just one of the things I did, I learned in karate and taught it for a while, and I discovered the martial arts had a very nice, interesting relationship to that. In the high levels of training in the martial arts, it's a lot about how do you get a clear head so that you don't over or underreact. So the idea of mind like water was something I was introduced back then, and that was a very real and a very practical thing. Even though there may be some sort of spiritual component to it. I mean, before people jump you in a dark alley, you don't want to have 3,000 unprocessed emails sort of hanging onto your psyche like warts. So being clear was always really nice. Now, if you're doing any kind of inner work or reflective or contemplative kind of work, obviously the clearer your head is, the fewer distractions you have, make it easier to focus on whatever you want to focus on. So I got very fascinated by that whole process in and of itself. It took me 25 years to actually figure out what I figured out. I thought I was the last guy in the world to learn this stuff. But then I looked around one day and I said, gee, nobody else seems to have figured this one out, and everybody else seems to be dealing with syndromes of distraction and overwhelm and getting worse every day. And even the most sophisticated, creative, productive people were the ones who were stepping on their own toes, with their own energies and what they were creating with that, and being highly distracted by it. So I was fascinated to discover I had actually uncovered something that worked without fail for everybody. So, I think I'm probably as much a teacher as anything else. And so being able to have something that was a methodology that without fail improved people's conditions for themselves and gave them permission and gave them space. What they did with that space was up to them. I mean, we worked with rock stars and comedians and writers and CEOs and 12-year-old kids or whatever. And what a 12-year-old does with clear space is very different than what a CEO of a Fortune 50 corporation does with clear space. But clear space is cool for both of them. Well, nobody in 2 million books out there, nobody has ever written me back anything that said anything in there is wrong. Virtually everybody writes it back and said, it's all right, and I wish I could do that. So it's just the lack of habits, and that's that's the common theme is I know I should, and I know it would be good, and I just can't get myself to do it as consistently as I ought to. And if they even get on the wagon, they often fall off regularly, and then they feel discouraged about it. So it's really the habit change. You know, I guess it's why it's so interesting is because the methodology that I teach is so simple. And it's not like some new foreign language or a technology that you're not familiar with. Everybody's familiar with all these behaviors, and everybody actually does these behaviors somewhat implicitly because that's how you get things done. You know, I didn't make stuff up. I just looked around and say, how do things happen when things really work? You know, what is it that gets you really on and focused and concentrated and gets rid of the distractions and allows you to be meaningfully engaged? And I just figured out what that was, looking around, and then uncovered what the principles were that were at play there. So once people understand the principles, they go, oh gosh, yes, your head is for having ideas, not for holding them. Nobody's ever disputed that admonition, but everybody's still holding a lot of stuff in their head. You know, it gives you a false sense of control, and it's a huge habit for adults to get rid of. Like any habit change, you just need consistency with it. You know, Dan, and come back to it again, 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 and come back to it again. So, you know, finding as many different ways as we can to make it easier for people, lowering the barrier of entry, you know, for people to be able to start to get engaged with this so they can really taste how cool the results are. But as I say, the biggest barrier to entry is people's addiction to stress, their willingness to tolerate not doing this and the results that produces. And it's just most people, a lot of what I do is I shut off the noise in the room you didn't know was there until you shut it off. So most people are walking around with just a lot of noise going on that they don't realize is there because they're in it so consistently. So once they actually taste what it's like to have absolutely nothing on your mind, they go, wow, whoa, what happened? You know, and it's very uncomfortable for people because it's very unfamiliar place. So, you know, all the reasons that any sort of new behavior, you know, can be a challenge, you know, for anybody to start to do habitually. You know, it's like, you know, the GTD or getting things done methodology is very much like any kind of art or craft. It's like learning the flute. It's like learning the tango. It's like playing chess. It's like playing tennis. In other words, there's no end to how good you can get at any of that stuff. And it's really a lifetime kind of stylistic approach, I guess, in the most positive sense. It is a lifelong journey to just get better and better and better and better at it. Because, you know, as I say, the better you get, the better you better get. The clearer your head gets, the more creativity you're going to generate, and the more things that are likely to blow back on you and create overwhelming frustration. So it's sort of like the better you get at getting things done, then the better you better get at getting things done, because you're going to just take on bigger and bigger, more ambiguous, incomplete, and impactful stuff. So, you know, it's kind of like, people say, gee, David, are you in stress? Regularly. That's why I teach this stuff, is so I can get out of it. You know, so, you know, if you're not stressing yourself out at least 6 times a day, you're probably not playing a big enough game. Right? You just don't want to stay there.